But here's where I urge you to step back and take a critical look at the way the primaries are covered, and whether there are other equally plausible ways they could have been covered that would have had very different implications. So let's look at the coverage. Start with Iowa. You can see Obama and Huckabee triumph. They are leaders of the pack. They jump to the front already. Oh, Obama's commanding win makes him the front runner. Wow! Shazam! No, really. Now let's look at New Hampshire. The evening belonged to Clinton and McCain, and a theme quickly emerged in the coverage. Let me see if you can find it.
Interesting.
In fairness, a few editors pulled out their thesaurus and referred to it instead as or how about a stunning comeback? So you can see what happens. The narrative emerges election night on the cable news channels, and by morning, everybody's reading from the same script. But let's take a critical look at this coverage. Was this really the most accurate way to cover the first two contests? To find out, let's look at what really happened in those contests, starting with what I can only describe as Iowa's super wacky caucus system. All right. First of all, who won the popular vote? Well, because of the complexity of their caucus system, they're unable to count it. I'm not kidding. Instead, they tabulate the winners of each of the several thousand caucuses, put it into a fancy mathematical formula, and you get the overall result. Right? You can see Obama did win, but it was hardly a blowout. Now, how many delegates did they each win, since that's what really matters? Well, that's actually impossible to know on election night as well. You can't know it until the state convention a couple months later, just like in Texas. But the media estimates on election night were as follows. Notice they don't track very well with the caucus outcome. Again, it's a super wacky system. Now, let's focus on Obama and Clinton. Obama's resounding victory was by one delegate. Now check this out. In order to win the nomination, a Democrat needs 2,118 delegates. So Iowa provided Obama with fewer than 1% of what he needed. Percentage-wise, it's actually very similar to the first game of a 162-game baseball season. Now, can you imagine logging onto the Star-Telegram website, seeing that the Rangers lost a close game on opening day, and then reading, "Season ruined, no hope for the World Series"? Of course not. The writer would be laughed out of the newsroom. And yet, for some reason, we let political journalists get away with equally dubious narratives. Now, what about these supposed comebacks in New Hampshire? It's even more absurd. This is the pollster.com's graphic of all of the national polls taken in the Democratic primary. Clinton's purple, Obama's orange. This line here begins 2007. You have the pre-primary season 08 here, and these first dots were the polls taken around the time of Iowa and New Hampshire. So, what in the world did she come back from? She was way ahead the entire year before Iowa, and then she lost by one delegate in a tiny state, and then she won a narrow victory in another tiny state. Yeah. In other words, the Rangers lose on opening day, but have a huge comeback in the pennant race by winning their second game. Oh, and by the way, since delegates are what matter, she didn't actually win New Hampshire.